Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. I am sitting down today, well, remotely. I am sitting down with Jake Eberhart of Boulder Canine. That's Boulder, and that was Bosley. Boulder Canine. And Jake, Bosley's saying hello because this is a dog episode. He wants to chime in. So this is what I know about what you guys are doing. So you guys moved out here from New York, but you got a rescue dog, and well, or maybe a shark, because I see the word shark on the website.
Pretty much both.
And I see that he chewed through an expensive leash.
That's correct.
And that motivated you guys to start making leashes and dog collars and things like that. And so, first off, welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to be talking about dogs, dog collars, leashes, all things dogs today. Most people, when they have something happen in their life, like the dog chewed through something, we don't go out and start making them ourselves. So what was the motivation? I mean, that's I'm going to applaud you for that.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. Did you ever think when you were in college you'd be doing this?
No, I went to college for economics. I was really hoping to do something a little bit more professional at the end of the day.
Okay.
You know, I had a couple of marketing jobs after college, which kind of got me started in, all of the things I would need to do in order to run a business from the advertising and marketing side. But no, I did not expect to be making leashes and collars every single day. Probably going to be for the next 10 years. I did not anticipate that.
So folks, Bosley's going to be a pain in this episode. We're just going to let it run. So you went to college for econ. I kind of can relate to that. I was a finance major, but didn't do anything with it either in the grand scheme of things. Valuable, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure you learned a lot of great lessons in the econ programs. So what brought you out to Washington State?
So once I finished up college, we did a little trip with our family out to Italy for a couple of weeks as a graduation gift.
Nice.
And in that time, my now wife, her parents offered us free rent if we wanted to move out here. So that was a pretty easy decision. So within a couple of days after we got back from that trip, I swear maybe 2 or 3 days, we decided to rent a car and drive across the country. And at the time, our only animal that we had was this little hamster, like a little tiny white and beige hamster. And so we took pictures of him across the country as we went different places. So we have pictures in front of him, in front of Mount Rushmore, by the Badlands, the canyons. We have pictures of him everywhere across the board. And that's kind of how we got out here. And then we just lived with our parents for a bit until we got our own place.
So did your wife grow up in the Seattle west side?
She did.
Okay, so
yeah.
Okay, so why? And so you met in college?
Yeah, so we actually went to Italy for our first year abroad. Mm-hmm. So we were freshmen in Florence, and that's where we met. Okay. And then she went back, and we both went to NYU together for the full 4 years, and just kind of went from
And what
there.
did she major in?
She was political science with a minor in psychology.
See, I see this. I can see the dog business coming from that.
Yeah, big time. At least a really big care for animals and people, right? Because naturally, once you start caring for people, you're like, wait a second, dogs are more fun.
Have you met my dog? But he is more fun. So, all right. Yeah. So when did you get? So how long were you? Okay, so you lived with your wife's parents for a while, and we all know how that goes. I mean, no offense to them, no offense to you. It's just blending.
They're lovely.
They're
lovely.
Blending generations is a bit of a challenge, especially just out of college. So you guys got your own place. How fast did you get a dog?
It was pretty quick. So we moved into our first apartment. We actually ended up hanging on to our family Chihuahua at the time. Her family had 2 German Shepherds. And that's where I really got started in working with German, because I've worked in rescue and nonprofits since a silly high school requirement when I was 15. That really just got me kicked off. And so when we were out here, we went to our own apartment and we were actually hanging on to our family resident Chihuahua. And then after that, we decided, hey, let's go buy a house so we can have our own big dog. So once we bought a house, it was pretty much immediate. We got our first
Okay.
rescue dog, Theo, who is the inspiration for our business.
And how old was Theo when you got him?
He was 13 weeks.
Oh, really young.
12 or 13 weeks. Yeah, so he was very, very young.
Okay.
It was actually a really crazy story. There was a woman selling a puppy on Craigslist for $50 over in Kennewick. And through the rescue, they said, do you want to go and pick this puppy up? And we said, yeah, obviously. Someone selling a German Shepherd for $50. That German Shepherd is not going to land in a house that it deserves. Right. So we went and picked it up, and we drove all the way to Kennewick, all the way there. And then we got a text from the lady saying, hey, I'm, another 30 minutes out. And then we drove another 30 minutes, said another 30 minutes out, drove another. So we're about 5 hours one way into a drive. And we were starting to get fed up because we were at this point waiting in a parking lot of a Walmart for almost an hour. And I set a timer on my phone for 5 minutes. And lo and behold, she showed up and we met Theo for the first time. Okay. We drove all the way back with him.
And how did he handle that car ride?
Oh, wonderful. He's one of those dogs that can live and breathe and sleep in the car and eat in the car. It's one of his favorite places in the entire world. He just likes going places.
Yeah, it's great when we got
easy.
Yeah, we got Bosley and we had to pick him up in Idaho, and it's about a 4.5 hour drive for us, Yeah. And he slept the whole ride home, which is what he does every time he's in the car now. He just sleeps. I mean, he doesn't do this barking thing like he's doing.
We should have had the podcast in the car.
Yeah, he's going to be relentless because he wants outside so bad, and he's going to just go bark loudly at the neighbor, and we're just not going to allow it. So, all right. So, how old was Theo when he chewed through this leash?
This was probably around him being 6 months old. Okay. And I've told the story a lot of times, but I'll say it with all of my passion now. And so my wife had ordered a new Biothin leash off of Amazon. And at the time, a couple of years ago, Biothin leashes were very expensive because not a lot of people were making them. It was kind of a really rare, sought after material that everyone loved. It was kind of mystical. Okay. So they charged about $80 or $90 for a simple leash. So it was expensive. And then he chewed through it. And then she got the same leash again, a second time, another $90. And as dual income, full-time career parents with just a puppy, we were like, let's just get another one. Let's just keep cycling through. Chewed through it. And then we borrowed her mom's leash, which was like her she's had this leash for, I can't even tell you how long, a long, long time. It was probably one of the first Biothin leashes that was ever created. She's had it for 10 years since then. Wow. So way even before it was rare for us. And he chewed through that one too. And I felt pretty bad about that. That was really what happened. And I said, I'm going to fix this. I don't know how. I'm going to fix your leash that you've had for the last decade. And I did. And I did some really simple research on Amazon, figured out what materials I needed to order in order to fix the existing leash. And I realized it was really easy. I was like, okay, cool. I can actually do this. So then I decided, let's find the material and see if I can make my own. Because why not? Instead of buying a new one, why not create our own? Because at the time we were renovating our house, we were really in this DIY mindset where, I was installing toilets and sinks. Making a leash doesn't seem that difficult. And so I started, and that was the first leash I ever fixed, was actually her mom's very expensive, very nice leash after we had ruined 2 of our own. And then I actually ended up making our own leash the first time, which surprisingly, he did not chew through.
Okay. We're going to stop right here because I have a question.
Yeah.
What is Biothin? Because you referenced it a lot, and I've not heard of it before. So if I haven't heard it before, I'm just going to guess somebody in the audience is going, what's Biothin? So what is Biothin, and why is it desirable for leashes and collars?
Yeah, so it's essentially one of the newer pet product materials that's hit the market. You've probably seen those like regular nylon leashes at the pet store, just the regular fabric ones. So that's actually on the inside, and there's a PVC coating on the outside. So it's actually a plastic, technically, but it feels like a broken in leather. And from my understanding, the original use for it was actually for horse tech. because they wanted something that was waterproof and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted something that was really strong and that could last for a long time, as well
Okay.
as keep that color and not crack like leather would out in the elements. So that essentially is biothane. It's PVC wrapped nylon that's super strong. It's odor resistant. So like I have leashes that I only take on hikes and I
Mm-hmm.
rinse them in rivers. And now 3 years later, they don't even smell and
You
they
don't
still
tell.
look nice and brightly colored. So that's
Okay.
essentially what it is in a
Okay.
short, very short form.
All right. So you fixed your mother-in-law's leash. You both went to NYU. Now, I want to talk about a very specific conversation I'm sure you had. And
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing. Hey, honey, I think we should open a business. Let's make dog leashes. What was that moment where the two of you kind of, the light bulb moment, went on and you're like, we should do this?
The light bulb moment was really when I decided to go full time in this business. So at the beginning, we were rescuing quite a few dogs. We were volunteering, fostering,
Okay.
out every single weekend, working with other fosters, working with other volunteers, working with dogs. And at the same time, I started making these leashes, and we said, okay, cool. Why don't we actually make these leashes for our volunteers?
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I believe, my wife's idea. I don't even think it was my idea to begin with. It was her idea. She goes, "Why don't you make some leashes for our volunteers just to say thank you, right?
Okay.
Free,
Right. Just doing it.
just
Mm-hmm.
free, just doing it. We appreciate you, kind of thing." And it was so well received. We ended up transitioning that to all the dogs that were adopted would go home with their own leash, and people could choose the color. And at the time, we had like 4 colors, and that became its own independent thing. So now we've got all of our volunteers with our leashes and all of our adopters with the leashes. And at that time, the business wasn't even created. We were stamping it with the True North GSD Rescue logo of the rescue that we supported. So we didn't even have a business name at that point. We were just making these leashes and providing them to adopters and volunteers. Okay. And then a friend told a friend, a family member told a family member, and we started getting requests left and right to make leashes. And at that point, we decided, okay, well, we're going to need to start a business because we want this to become independent of the rescue, but also keep our values and morals to donating to rescue true and allow those to continue on, even though we're becoming our own independent business. At the time, my wife, Catherine, had started an Instagram account for our dogs called the Boulder Brothers, because our Theo is short for Theobold, and we started his Instagram, and then we got another rescue dog, so they became the Boulder Brothers. And so naturally, Boulder Canine just kind of came out of that. That was just like a clear. I came up with so many silly business names. I mean, there's got to be a list somewhere of the 20 or 30 that I was thinking between, and that one, as we were just one night hanging out with the dogs, posting a reel on Instagram for them, just came to us. It made sense.
Is it, on a side note, isn't it amazing how popular dogs can be on Instagram? It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how wild. Dogs. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of Bernese Mountain Dogs that have 500,000 followers of their. Yeah. More. And I don't. My daughter manages the Instagram for us, and she doesn't allow me on there because it's like, okay, boomer, stay away. Go look at Facebook, and even on Facebook, there's a bunch of Bernese Mountain Dogs, and it's just interesting to me how dogs, in particular, have these massive. I've interviewed a couple of social media influencers with the Bernese Mountain Dogs, before for the show, and it's like. They're just, anyway. And
coming from the marketing world, I was managing social media all the time. I in college, I posted on my Instagram for my friends. Then when I started working in social media, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And so, because I was doing it for work and I was getting paid for it, and it just didn't feel like at the end of the day, I wanted to go on my own social media and post a photo. So I was kind of against it at first. And then, my wife started taking all these really funny videos, and they genuinely were hysterical. And I wanted to share them. All of a sudden, that kind of love for, my dogs online and sharing those memories and those experiences with other people became something that I wanted to do. And we were both having a great time with it. And we had a couple of reels go viral when we first started. because we had a puppy. We had multiple puppies coming in through fosters. We had other fosters, older fosters, younger fosters. We had so many dogs that we could highlight. And it
Right.
also benefited the rescue to have these foster dogs and dogs that are available to adopt be parts of viral reels, because it brought in not only donations to the rescue, but also eyes for adopters that get to see these really quirky parts of their personality that a simple blurb on a website about them just wouldn't really show. And that's really why we kind of went with that social media to begin with for our dogs. It's just kind of like, they're silly, they're goofy, they're honestly most of the time pretty dumb, but we love them all the same. And we wanted to kind of highlight that, and our foster dogs were the same way. So it was weird because I really didn't want to do it at first, and then I ended up getting convinced to go back onto it.
Let's talk about the rescue for a second. And why don't you spend a couple of minutes here sharing more about that specific rescue or any other rescues that you guys are, helping out these days?
I can definitely do that. There is quite a bit to talk about there. As I'm sure a lot of people listening to this podcast, in Washington has a pretty weird state of rescue right now. But I'll kind of talk about where I came from. So I had mentioned earlier that I had a silly high school prerequisite that got me into rescue. And I was in New York City going up to the Petco on 86th Street every Saturday morning to help set up crates for cats and dogs that were being adopted there. And I would head out and I would come back at 6 o'clock and I'd help break them down. And then eventually that transitioned to staying for the whole event. Then fast forward a couple of years, my wife is working with another local German Shepherd rescue, and I started kind of dipping my hands into that rescue too, doing some of their social media stuff very, very sparingly, as we both had, growing careers. We were trying to find time for that kind of thing. It was nice to get back into it. And eventually one of the volunteers of that rescue ended up starting their own, which was True North GSD Rescue. And about a year later, we decided, let's just go full on with this new volunteer and join this new rescue and kind of be at the ground floor instead of something that's already been developed and grown. Let's see if we can make a difference, and maybe our voices will be heard a little bit more as volunteers and fosters. So we started with True North GSD Rescue about a year after they started. So they were founded in February or March of 2018, and we joined sometime January of 2019, right before COVID.
Perfect.
And as we started working with them more, we started realizing that the way that they were being led was the most honest and genuine way that a rescue could be run that I'd ever seen. And again, I worked nonprofits for a very long time, and I never really felt like I had a voice. I just kind of felt like I was an additional hand helping turn the cogs. And I really like that. I really like that my voice could be heard, because at the end of the day, we're the ones with these dogs 24/7. They're at our home. They're in our lives. They're integrated with our routines and our structure. And really, we do know every part of them. We know their ins and outs. We know their quirks. And in other rescues, I didn't really feel like our opinion was being held higher. So when they were getting out adoptions, at times we would be ignored a little bit. And I didn't really love that, and it didn't really set well with me. So this new rescue, they really cared about what we thought. And we actually had a really big influence. So we joined, really went boots on the ground. We're fostering 24/7 for about 3 years through COVID. So we had at minimum one foster dog in our house at all times. From 2019 to about 2022, we had a foster dog in our house at all times. We ended up, I think, going through about 20 or 30 of them during that time. And we had our own dogs too, and we had our own full-time jobs as well. And I was getting started on the leashes. So now, in this rescue, my wife is still a really big part of it. I still volunteer, obviously, but since I donate so much, I've kind of stepped away a little bit as far as like the operations are concerned. And I'm helping temperament test dogs, because every dog that comes into the rescue goes through some level of behavioral assessment, and I'm one of the people that helps conduct that. We're advocating for volunteers, making sure people are supported, they have the gear, the food, any kind of vet bills or medical expenses, that's all taken care of. Kind of like a rescue liaison. We partner with some other local rescues as well when maybe we don't have room for a dog, or maybe they don't have room for a dog, and we try to network and find room for a place, especially with dogs in shelters that are wonderful. We want to try and get those dogs out as fast as possible. But now we're really just doing, at minimum, 10 hours a week volunteering. And with a full-time foster, we're on the phone, we're texting people, we're in group chats, we're helping with social media, marketing, photography, videography. The list goes on. But we are just really highly rooted in this rescue, and I would never change that. And that was part of the decision why I became full-time in Boulder Canine, was so that I could actually be one of those people that if a dog needed help, I can just close down my shop and go and leave and go help that dog. I could never do that with a full-time job. I can't just dip out of a meeting and go help save a dog or pull a dog from a shelter. I could never do that. And now I own my own business. So if I want to leave and go help, I can. And I don't think anybody's going to be mad at me for doing that.
Well, you might beat yourself up on that. All right. You started repairing.
Yes.
And then you started making them for the rescue volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started making them as something that goes home with every dog.
Yeah, we kind of called it like a creative fundraising technique, because, when you talk about, we're going back to econ for a second here, when people are donating money and they don't get anything in return except for self-gratification, they're a lot less likely to donate. And I know that sounds a little bit, that's just the reality of
that's
the
just
world.
Human nature.
It is human. It is human nature.
Human. It's like, think about this. Why does the University of Washington have a wealth donor's name on a building? I mean, they want, because it was not probably, hopefully the only reason, but a reason that individual or that family decided to be very generous with their resources. And that happens. I mean, people want recognition. And yes, I can give you a nice certificate thanking you for, your 1,000 hours of volunteering this year.
Yeah.
But if you handed me, if I handed you a leash, no matter what the monetary cost of it was something tangible that you might. It's just human nature. I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. I just think it's the way humans are wired.
Bingo. And right before COVID, we at the rescue, things were really picking up before COVID. And I don't really mean in a good way. We were getting lots more surrenders, lots of people that could no longer care for the dogs. So we had an influx of dogs. I mean, at one point we had 3 fosters in our house because it was really hard to find foster parents. So we had 3 foster dogs in our house, and we were rotating. We had 4 rotates throughout their house throughout the day while working full-time jobs.
Wow.
And so as we started this business, the creative fundraising technique actually worked really well, because we could sell the leash, quote unquote, and we would basically be able to contribute all of the money that was generated from that sale and go right back to the rescue. And so at the beginning, I wasn't covering my costs, and I was just going 100% of every single sale was going right to the rescue. That eventually changed, and I eventually decided to go with, okay, we're going to switch that over to profits, because I still need to be able to run the business. I still need to be able to do all those things. And during COVID, all of a sudden everyone wanted dogs again. And so there was another influx of different types of costs and expenses that everyone was bringing on. We had more vet bills because we had to make sure that all dogs were checked out, or if they needed spay or neuter before they were leaving the rescue, we had to make sure of that. We had to make sure they were up to health. We had to pay for transport costs. There was just so much more to pay for in a different way, that leashes and selling tugs, when we first started doing that, was a huge contributing factor for us not having to go out and fundraise 24/7. And the rescue still always, every rescue everywhere in the world needs more funding. It's just the truth. There's no amount that I could give that'll completely compensate everything that they do. But in those times where things started getting crazy, being able to focus more on the dogs and the people rather than having to go out and actually look for funding was a huge, huge benefit. And they actually were able to adopt out a lot more dogs during COVID than we've seen in previous years because of that fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was so when you decided to start selling, what
Yeah.
was your first product?
Actually, it's funny you say that. It was this one. And I still make it. This is still a design we have today. So this is called our
Okay.
Atlas leash. And it's
That is
funny that
pretty
I
funny.
have one right next to me.
So the Atlas leash. Okay.
It's the Atlas leash was our first ever leash because when we did the repair, that was just simple. We folded the material over and put it together. But when we were going to start selling things, I said to myself, it's got to be cooler. It's got to be more intriguing. There has to be more about it. And at the time, all I ever saw was single color leashes. And I was like, why can't we put 2 colors or 3 colors on a leash? And that's kind of how this design was created, is to be able to do 2 colors on a leash instead. So we started selling this one at the beginning for the donations for the rescue. And it looked a little bit different, definitely. We've come a long way when it comes down to the different types of hardware we're using now, the different types of techniques that we're using, how we're actually finishing the product. But this is still our first ever design that we created. And to date, it's still our best selling standard leash. I mean, this is just the one that we started with, and it's the one that's reigned
So
true.
I'm on
for
your
years.
website and I'm looking at the Atlas
Yeah.
leash. Now I know this is an audio show, so people, got to put up with me here. And the photo of it is, it's the leash itself is blue. The handle is a leather brown. But there's this clip on the end.
Yeah.
This black clip. Is that the frog clip? Okay.
It is the frog
looks
clip.
like
Yeah.
it looks like the head of a set of pliers, if you will. It looks like, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what on earth? So
Yeah.
I warned you, this is where we go off the rails. Scott finds something and we start talking. But yeah, what the heck is a frog clip, and why are you using it on a leash?
One of the things that I think differentiates us is we really try to go out of the box when it comes to dog leashes. I like things that are really minimalist, and I like things that are functional. I'm sure our customers have heard me say this before, but my goal is that whatever I make and whatever I send you, I want you to be able to pick it up with no instructions and know how to use it in 30 seconds or less. And that's always been my mantra behind everything that I make and design.
Okay.
And so as we go out of the box, we have to think of A, what's the visual appeal of it? B, what's the functional appeal to it? And C, what's, what are people actually going to use this for? And so the frog clip, we originally brought it in because I thought it looked cool. Fair and square. I was like, this is a super cool looking clip. As we started to do more research and as we started to bring out more products, we actually realized it's actually a safer clip than a standard bolt snap because it has 2 gates instead of, I know that no one can see this, but you can see here, this only has the 1 gate as a standard leash. So in order to open that, you have to peel back both levers, which makes it a safer option. And then as time progressed, we were making a lot more gear for people with mobility issues, especially people with dexterity issues in their hands. And we actually found it's significantly easier for somebody with dexterity issues to use that frog clip because of the motion it is to actually open it. Instead of having to use your thumb to pull back a lever, you can just use your 2 little fingers and it's a super easy, nice, clean open. And actually to close it, you don't even need to close it. You can just push it straight on while it's open and it'll automatically close. So we started with it looking cool. And then we actually found out there were all these other different use cases that just kind of came up. So we really heavily invested in that quite a bit. Everyone loves it. I love it. It's my wife's it's my wife's parents' favorite clip. My wife is still solid brass. She's just a very typical traditional, likes their nice, clean look. I actually like our carabiners the best because I like things that are on there solid and they're really not meant to come off. Not that everything isn't meant to, but carabiners are just the most secure option. But for example, people with dexterity issues, with mobility issues, a twist gate carabiner, you're going to fumble around with. And especially if you don't have full use of your hands, it's going to be almost impossible to use a product that I send you on a regular basis. Like you can't physically do it. So that's kind of the story behind the frog clip. I really love them. They're really great.
So you're offering, you've got multiple offerings there. I'm looking these. You've got a wide range of potential colors to use too.
Yeah. Last time I checked, and this was a couple months ago, we were having a glass of wine as we were winding down for the day. And I said, you know what, let's figure out how many possible combinations across all our products that we can make. It was, we got to about 5 million before we stopped. I mean, there are quite literally across all of the different leashes and collars and everything we offer, there's over 5 million possible combinations of everything you can make, from the different clip sizes to the lengths and the colors, and everything has so much variety. And that was actually one of the reasons why we went this specific direction, because we many times had faced a lot of difficulty not being able to meet demand, because we had so much demand and we physically didn't have enough hands to make everything. We thought about, well, we can probably go to pre-made stuff and just sell based on standard inventory like 99% of the other pet industry stuff does. And we decided not to. And I just decided to step up and get better at it. I started practicing. I started seriously doing exercises, drilling Chicago screws together and sewing, and I just got better and I just got faster, and it allowed us to actually meet that demand on a regular basis. I mean, now our processing time is still about 3 weeks. So people are waiting anywhere between, about a 1 week for a basic, simple tug order to 3 weeks for a complex, braided, multicolor, super long hands-free leash. But at the end of the day, they're getting probably, in my opinion, the highest quality biofilm product that's on the market right now. And we do all of our own designing. So these are all unique to us. We really have never taken any designs from anyone else. We've obviously drawn inspiration from different places, like any good craftsman will. But all this stuff is unique, and then people can make it uniquely to them. And they know that it's been, I've sat on my workbench and I've specifically cut their pieces to what they've asked for. And we're able to do that for hundreds of orders every single month. And I love that fact. And that's why we're always adding in new colors and expanding on that 5 million all the time.
So once again, I'm still on the Atlas. You have a graphic, and I just counted, and I could be wrong because math can be challenging. Basic math can still be hard for me. But I see 33 different colors.
Yeah, so 33 sounds about right.
Okay.
We're always trying to get our hands on new stuff too. Biothane.
So what's the most popular color?
Black. Always black. Black forever. I order 3 rolls of black to every 1 roll of color. It's been like that since I started. That's
okay. We're not going to allow you to say black a second time. What's the next most popular color?
Probably our sage green. Our sage green is probably our next popular color. We have a lot of sage green and forest green combinations. I mean, we are a Washington-based business after all. Right. I'm not surprised that the greens are our second, most popular color. We do see a lot of sage. We have so many bright colors, and one of the best parts about biothane, and I'll also talk about one of the challenging parts about it. Best parts is that color is going to last for a very long time. I mean, we have leashes. I still have the first leash that we ever made, and it's a bright orange leash. There's no beating around the bush. You can't tell. You can't say, "Oh, it's faded," because you'll be able to tell. If you shine it up with a little bit of OxyClean, it's like spanking brand new. It is bright orange, just like the day that I made it. But the challenge with biothane is that there's only so many set colors, because they are a U.S. manufactured item.
Okay.
So they have a set number of colors that they create, and we're not able to, for example, customize our own color. There are businesses that do that, and they go overseas in order to get those manufactured to specific, like, let's say, Pantone colors. But since we're only sourcing the real, genuine, authentic biothane, we're a little bit restricted. But as you can see, there are so many colors to choose from, and they're always releasing more. And there have been colors that have been discontinued that sometimes we try and get our hands on too for like limited edition things. A lot of colors, and they're constantly changing over and over.
There's a lot. And then you've got, I should get one of these.
You should.
These tug toys.
Yeah.
What's the ball made out of typically?
So the ball, we've gone with a couple different options, and one of the reasons why we really didn't make our own is because we found we could always get it manufactured, and unfortunately that
Mm-hmm.
would have to go overseas, right, in order to get something manufactured like that, because there's not a lot of US makers that do make them. There are some, but a lot of times they're already making them for brands
Mm-hmm.
like Chuckit, like Kong. The balls are typically made out of just a basic rubber. Those are just straight up rubber balls. We also have Eva foam balls as well. They're just Eva foam is essentially like a high durability foam. It's really dense, but it floats. But we decided to stick with essentially name brand balls because we found a lot of people's dogs had preferences about the balls that they like. So when you have a dog, and it seriously goes as deep as my dog will only play with a medium-sized orange chuck ball and will not touch anything else. And I've tried it, and that's it. And it's ridiculous. Oh, I know. But I started to realize that, wait a second, my dogs also have these preferences. I just never really noticed. And so we started playing some games, especially with our dog
Mm-hmm.
Theo, who's really particular about his balls, and found that he only likes a very specific type. He likes for example, loves the Chuckit, the glow ball, because it's so squishy. He can completely collapse it, and that makes him happier. It makes him run harder. It makes him train harder. All of those things reign true. So we decided, let's just keep with the balls that are already on the market and use those, because people's dogs oftentimes already have an affiliation or a preference towards those balls. So as they're transitioning from playing fetch to playing tug, and they want to use that for training, or they want to use that for engagement, or for whatever use, it's a much more natural transition for the dog because they already know the texture, they know the taste, they know the scent. And yeah, so we've got those two kinds of like different material balls, rubber and foam.
I don't know what Bosley's preference is. That's really interesting. Bosley has this thing we call stick, and it's a collagen stick.
Oh yeah, I know those.
Okay, so I'm sure your dogs can destroy anything they want to, right? I mean, if they want to destroy, Bosley wants to destroy something, he's going to destroy it. The indestructible.
I've got 2 German Shepherds and a Husky. If they decide something's dying today,
right,
it's dead.
And I remember my wife she got this guaranteed indestructible toy. We'll give you your money back if your dog just can. 20 minutes later, it's destroyed. He just destroyed it.
That doesn't exist.
It's like, yeah.
Trust me, doesn't exist. It's poor marketing. Indestructible
right.
Anything does not exist.
So somebody I know gave me one of these collagen sticks, and it's about 12 inches long, and it's,
mm-hmm.
He carries it. It's like his blanket. Those things last.
Like
those things last for months. Every night, when it's time for bed, we go get your stick, and he goes and get it, and he comes to the bedroom. In the morning, he takes it outside. Where he puts it, we're never sure. But it's just, that's his toy. Everything else is kind of. We have moments where this is important to him, and then there's other moments where he can't be bothered with it. But he loves tugging. And I'm just looking at this going, okay, I'm going to need new shoulders, because he'll just, destroy my shoulders by doing this. But that's very cool that you're doing that.
Yeah. Last night, we've got a Husky. It was 11:30 last night. And seriously, it was 11:30 last night. And he sometimes decides that he hasn't had enough stimulation for the day, and he'll take one of my tugs because he knows I have a soft spot for the toys that I make. And he brings it over to me, pushes it into me. He goes, "We're going to play tug right now." So I'm sitting there trying to watch TV just with one arm kind of getting yanked forward constantly. And he's just sitting there just nailing on this tug. And listen, all dogs have a preference. He has a preference towards other toys, other tugs, but he knows in order to get me, he's got to go for my soft spot.
That's so funny.
Toys that I've made him every single time, and it gets me. It gets me because I love that our dogs love our toys just as much as I do. Seriously, our younger Shepherd, or older than Archer, our younger Shepherd, he will only play with our tugs. Doesn't matter what shape it is, doesn't matter what size it is. only our tugs. I do not know why, but he has a complete preference, a complete bias to only things that I make out of the shop. Do you have any idea how happy that makes me? I could not have asked for a better dog at that point. That's all he'll ever do.
You make collars. You're making
Yeah,
collars.
there's
So
some weird
basically,
stuff.
is I'm going to read across. It says
Yeah.
all products. Okay, fine. We'll skip that. You got leashes. You got varieties of leashes.
Yeah.
You got toys. You got some toys. You got collars. You carry stickers. Okay, but on the main page on your home page, if I go back, I'd like to talk about this really quick, and it won't go back. Why? What's going on here? Oh, there we go. It looks like, where did I see this at? Coming soon. Get ready for the Boulder Canine harness.
Yeah, that is. I forgot about that on this podcast. That is happening. We ended up. This is a really interesting story. We have used other brands' harnesses for a long time, very, very long time. We have a husky. We go hiking all the time. I personally prefer my dogs on a harness when I'm hiking because I think it's more comfortable, especially for a prolonged period of time. Having them on a collar or a martingale or whatever, I feel like it's more comfortable for them to be on a harness. And plus, as I get tired, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of extra pull as I'm getting towards the end of a hike. But I always found that they tore really easy. I mean, he would go off into the bushes somewhere, and I'm a big advocate for leashes and hiking. I always have a long line and a short lead with me at all times. So I usually keep him on a long line. When I see a dog coming, recall him, pop him on the short lead.
Sure.
But he does like to go off, of course, and take his own detours. He's a husky. And the harnesses kept ripping. I mean, over and over again. It just kept ripping over and over. I found that it was starting to chafe under his arms. There's just a lot of different things that I realized weren't great about these expensive harnesses that we were buying from pet stores. And I said, okay, well, what if we kind of manufactured our own? So I reached out to I'm not going to mention which company it is, but we reached out to one of the manufacturers of one of the better known harnesses in the world to see if they'd be willing to make a sample for us. And they did. And they sent it to us. And I was blown away. I was like, I did not know harnesses could be this nice and this durable and this light and all these great things. And so we went through a different couple of iterations. We finally decided on a finalized design. So these harnesses are designed by me. I did all the designing. It's 100% us. And they're actually supposed to arrive in the next week or so. And I'm pretty excited about it. They are what we consider to be a hybrid harness, is what I'm calling it. So you see lots of like hiking dog harnesses, and then you see lots of like tactical style harnesses. And I've always wanted the benefits of a tactical harness without it looking like a tactical harness. Because again, I like things that jive with everybody in the community, not just individuals that want their dog to look like a tactical dog. So we brought in all of the same usability of a tactical harness. So we've got the Molly rails, we've got Velcro, we've got heavy duty buckles. And then we ended up going with a really high quality, what's called 500D Cordura fabric. And 500D Cordura fabric repels water. So as water hits it, it's backed with a polypropylene. So the water actually won't even get into the fabric. So it won't even get to the dog's fur, keeping them dry, especially in the Pacific Northwest. A drier dog typically is a better dog. And it's incredibly abrasion resistant. So if it gets hit with sticks, and we've tested this because I've taken it hiking and I've gone let them out there, harness looks good as new. I mean, I can't even see the visible scratches on there. They're not even there. So we did higher quality materials, stronger stuff. And then we decided, let's go with some really fun colors that are not camouflage. They're not coyote brown. They're not, they're not like anything too crazy. So they're really appealing. So as our own dogs, we're pet dog owners. We have working breeds, but they are our pets. I don't want to be a person that's out there and people look at my dog and go, oh, that dog is scary, right? Or that dog looks like it means business, because Asher is a 95-pound German Shepherd. And he's a big dog, and he already has that going against him, that he's a huge dog. I mean, he's like a butterfly. Okay. He wouldn't hurt anything. He's scared of the wind. Okay. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
want people to have any other reason to look at my dogs and go, I want to stay away from them. So I like things that are inviting. I like brightly colored gear. I like things that portray communication.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we have these, I have a bunch on my desk. We've got these leash wraps, right? That just go, they're simple, in training, ask to pet, things that are like that, that are inviting and communicative, and colorful and vibrant. And it kind of, in a way, diffuses and
Well,
brings down, I want to say, the scary level of our dogs. And I like those nicely colored things, but I want all of the benefits of all those really awesome tactical harnesses that are honestly kind of cheaply made. Um, so we started making our own harnesses, and I got the third iteration of the harness. I'm so stoked. You have no idea. I'm going to be using these every single day, all day long. They're going to be my
so
go-to.
what size dog are those going to be for? Because
So we got a couple
okay.
sizes. So we're ranging from small to large. We're just starting with this because this is a huge investment
Sure.
for us. This is honestly our biggest investment to date as a
Mm-hmm.
business. It was a really big decision. So we looked at our customer base. We looked at who our existing audience was and what kinds of dogs that they had. And that's kind of where we
Mm-hmm.
started. So we have primarily mediums and larges. So our large is actually kind of a large, extra large. I mean, Asher's a 95 pound
Mm-hmm.
shepherd, and it fits him with room for adjustment. And that's exactly
Okay.
what I wanted. I wanted people with very large breed dogs, XL bullies, shepherds, Malinois, even poodles can get
Yeah.
massive, and sometimes are in
Mm-hmm.
St. Bernards. They're difficult to find things that fit. I wanted a harness that would be adjustable so that if you have, like, let's say a pitty who has a really big chest and a really narrow waist, that harness is still going to adjust up to them and properly fit snug and anatomically
Right.
accurate, so they're not chafing and it's not uncomfortable for them, that they can wear it all day long and not be bothered by it. So we've got a couple of different sizes. I would say at this current moment, like, so my family dog back in New York is a King Charles Cavalier Spaniel. She's name is Willow. She's one of the New York City bar dogs. She's out there in a Giants jersey with my parents all the
So
time,
wait,
all
hasn't
the
somebody
time.
called to like for animal abuse wearing a Giants jersey?
I know in a Washington State podcast, I'm probably going to get flamed for that. But it will fit her. And that's probably going to be the smallest size. And she's about a
Okay.
15-pound dog. We do want to offer smaller, but just for this first run, we're starting with
Right.
the
Well, that makes
majority of our
sense, man.
customer base
That
as
makes
much as
sense. You got to
possible.
test it.
Yeah.
You got to test it. So here's a question I love to ask business owners. Business owners don't always like me asking this
Yeah.
question. So play along.
Play along.
What great idea did you have that flopped?
Oh, I mean, I've got it right.
Well,
That's my whole life.
but here's
My
the
whole life
thing.
is
I
great
don't mean
ideas
it to
of
be
flop.
mean.
Yeah.
I mean it because typically people
No.
when we think this is going to be cool, and we run with it, and then it just doesn't hit. It just, for whatever reason, bad marketing, bad product. It's Tuesday, but
Sure.
we learn something differently than when we meet everything without any resistance. So, did you have any ideas like this leash or this tuggy that just didn't work?
So I want to put this in as a precursor. Every single product that I have to date has had an iteration before it that has flopped. Every single one. That's why we have product testers, and I do have kind of a set group, like a control set, and then whenever we have new products, I also select the same amount equally of random. So there's some level of just anyone who's available to test the product is going to be able to tell me what they think. And I like the control group because those are trusted individuals that I know are going to tell me, this is stupid. This doesn't work. Here's the problems of this. And so the one that comes to mind is there's a material called biothane rope. It's essentially paracord wrapped in PVC. So same kind of material ideology, but instead it's a rope. And we tried to make a tension-based tug toy with the rope, like a paracord knot, with a foam handle. So it was completely tension-based, and the ideology behind it was going to be a more comfortable tug for people to use instead of. I do think that our stuff is very comfortable, but as we talk about people
Right.
with dexterity and mobility issues, having thick foam on there could actually be really nice, especially as you have any
Right.
injuries to
Right.
your hands, things like that. And so I practiced making them. I probably made about 15 or 20, and I was like, these are awesome. I've been using them. Our dogs are not destroying them. They're not coming apart. So I sent about 10 testers out, every single one of those
Really?
testers. It didn't work. They came apart. The dogs ended up biting the rope, and with only a bite or two, the rope was coming apart. And we had huge social media draw to make them because visually they're beautiful. They're really nice looking tug. They look really unique,
Okay.
but they flopped.
Well,
I couldn't, in good conscience, put this out on our store because while we could make them, and while for us they worked okay, for others in a huge group of controlled testers,
okay.
it sucked. And I think we still
Yeah.
have one. I think we still do somewhere. I think we still have one because why not? But that was an idea that I invested a lot more time than I'd like to admit in because I had to learn how to make different knots with paracord to figure out which would be the best one to use for. I must have sank at least 10 hours into just figuring out what I was going to do. And it flopped. And people on social media asked me for months afterwards when it was coming out.
No,
And I had
but
to say, it's
but
not,
we learn
no,
stuff. I mean, that's
it's
the
not gonna
thing.
happen.
We learn stuff. So
Oh yeah,
as we begin to wind this one down, I got a couple of questions I want to ask you. One question is going to be a little different than what I normally ask, but you've mentioned, but it's on theme. You've mentioned a couple of times you like to go hiking with the dogs. So where's some hikes that you guys like to go? What are some good dog, I don't want to say friendly, but like good hikes for the dogs that you guys like to go on to?
So, oh yeah. So if you have a dog, I would just stay away from Rainier or Olympic because they do not allow dogs in national parks. National forests are fine, but national parks do not allow dogs. So if you're ever planning a hike, you might get, I mean, if you're going really early in the morning, no one will probably say anything.
We
But
can't
if you're
advise
there
that,
with
folks.
rangers
So
around,
go
they
ahead.
will tell you to leave.
Yeah.
Exactly. Cannot advise that. I've never done it. It's just what I've heard. There are a couple of hikes that are close by that I really like doing, especially for people that come out to visit us. Barclay Lake is one of them. Barclay Lake is a nice short hike. You can do it in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's really dog friendly. It's not a huge uphill hike. So even if you have a dog that's not in amazing shape, it's a great hike to do. For my husky, that is just born and bred to be wild. Things like Kolchak Lake. Kolchak Lake is everyone knows Kolchak Lake. It's a beautiful, beautiful hike. That's a wonderful one. I'd say my third off the beaten trail hike that a lot of people don't do enough of. It's called Anderson and Watson Lakes. Anderson and Watson Lakes is an absolutely stunning hike that has not nearly the reviews that it should on any of the sites. It's a bit of a pain to get to. It's a double lake hike. And you can actually camp up there overnight. There's a couple of different, there's still a backcountry permit, but they have sites with fire rings because it is under the elevation. You can still have fires if they're in the fire rings. It is a wonderful hike, especially for dogs. You have just those really, and maybe I'm giving away a secret of the hikers out here in Washington to go there, but we're talking turquoise clear water at the final lake. You can go for a swim. Your dog can go for a swim. It's one of those lakes that typically doesn't have algae blooms, so it's usually safe to swim in as a person, let alone a dog. Gorgeous. That's really like if you have a dog that really enjoys hiking, that's the one I'd go to. It's a bit of a drive. I think it's 2 hours ish from the Seattle area, but it's worth it. It's one of those hikes that if you can get up there in the summer, it'll blow you away.
All right, I prepped you for 2 of these, remember? So, question number 1. It's all about coffee for me.
You did.
Where's some great coffee around you?
Yeah. So we've done a couple of events here in the Kenmore area because we live in Kenmore. And we've done a couple of events at the hangar in Kenmore, which is like the community building. And inside the hangar, there's a place called Diva Espresso. And I particularly like them because I am severely allergic to gluten. And they always have gluten-free pastries. And I love that. Coffee is home run. And the gluten-free pastries just sealed the deal for me. So now sometimes what I'll do is we'll go out to, especially on like a rainy day, the hangar has like this overhang so you can still sit outside. We'll go outside. The dogs will hang out with my wife outside. I'll pop in, grab us some pastries and coffee, and we'll just sit. It's great socialization practice for our dogs. You know, we have 3 very, very social dogs, but you can never get enough socialization. And just sitting there, just watching the world go by with a rainy day and a cup of coffee, that's probably my favorite place.
All right, follow up to that.
Yeah.
What's the coffee beverage choice for you and for your wife, followed by what's the pastry choice?
Okay, coffee for me, I'm a purist. I just like espresso. I like black drip coffee will be my go-to. If it's not there, espresso over ice every single time.
Okay.
For whatever reason.
Solid.
That's just my thing. My wife, big cappuccino person.
Okay.
That's, we went to Italy.
Right.
For God's sake. Like we lived in Italy for a year. We've been there 5 times separately. Cappuccino, that's her thing. For pastries, she's not much of a pastry person. She pretty much just kind of nibbles on whatever I get. Okay. As you can imagine, as a husband and wife relationship typically goes. I'm a big fan of like raspberry scones. Raspberry scones, I like them. Again, traditional, kind of dry, kind of hard, just like that. That's the nail in the coffin for me. I will die eating a raspberry scone.
Solid.
That's my thing.
I'm with you. I'm kind of the coffee purist as well. Drip's my go-to, but espresso's, amazing as well. But all right. Now
I have black coffee right now.
As do I. Now Kenmore.
Yeah.
Lunchtime. Now you just said you're gluten-free, or you're gluten-free because you need to be. Where's a great?
Unfortunately, I grew up in New York. Yeah. So I was not gluten-free for my golden years. So I experienced pizza just the way it was supposed to be experienced until one day I was like, it's time. I got to go off gluten. Okay. It's killing me. So I got to still live gluten-containing, especially through our Italian times. I got all that good stuff in. So I got years and years of gluten, and now I'm okay without it.
See, no, I can't. My wife likes to eat gluten-free, and anyway, where's a great place for lunch around Kenmore?
So I actually like over in Bothell. So Kenmore and Bothell are so close together. Kenmore is still kind of building out, so there's not too much for lunch around here quite yet. We actually hop over to the Vine in Bothell. It's like a tap room. They've got burgers, and they make an absolutely killer burger with a gluten-free bun, and they have beer cheese that is made with gluten-free beer cheese, and it is a knockout burger despite it being gluten. Unbelievable. And you can get it containing gluten and all that kind of stuff. Like you can get the full everything on it 100%. But especially for people like me, having a place that I can go get a greasy, delicious, cheesy burger and a gluten-free beer.
You're good.
That's a great lunch. That's that's like a perfect Saturday lunch right on the spot.
Excellent. And look, my wife makes some amazing gluten-free stuff here at the house. It's not that I just don't know that I could live without pizza. And I could live without bagels. No, it's not that I'm not a bagel guy. I'm willing to give up certain things, but pizza's that one kind of just, man. And yes, you can get it with a gluten-free crust in some places. It's
not the same. And I'm gonna give you another one. Cinnamon rolls gluten-free. They are a rarity to find something that's even remotely tolerable. There's a couple of places down in Oregon that have them. So whenever I'm in Oregon, I have to drive back. So I'm going to give you something that may be helpful to you. Have you ever been to Concrete, Washington? Yeah.
That gluten-free bakery there. I stumbled into that because I was driving across the North Cascades and I wanted a cup of coffee. And so I pulled into Concrete, which this was his bakery. And I'm like, walk in and and everything in here is gluten-free. And so I started talking, everything in there is gluten-free. Have you been there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have not. I have many people that have, and I believe that I've actually eaten their stuff because they sell it.
I was super impressed. I was like, I brought some stuff home to my wife, who that was, got good husband points for that. Totally, it's not that big of a drive for you. I mean, it's a drive, but if you're going to take the dogs out for a hike or go somewhere, you might just pop up there as as a reward for you.
We have there's a bakery in Vancouver,
Canada,
Canada,
Lemonade,
called Lemonade. They're a gluten-free bakery that is, I seriously believe this is the best gluten-free stuff, period. I don't think I've ever had better. So we'll sometimes take a Saturday and drive up to Vancouver into Canada, pick up about a month's worth of gluten-free items, and we always order ahead because it's quite literally over $1,000 sometimes. And we have all of our gluten-free friends, so we make the trip for them, and we come back and we distribute gluten-free items to all these people, like loaves and loaves of sourdough. So much sourdough, like more than you ever know what to do with. And we'll sometimes do that. We'll sometimes go all the way up to Vancouver to get the gluten-free stuff.
All right. Okay, we got two things.
Yeah.
What didn't we talk about? What's going on with you guys that you want to share that we didn't get to? We're going to put where people can find you in the show notes. That'll be, be all there. But why don't you give a shout out to where you can be found, where you want people to look for you? But what didn't we maybe stumble into during our conversation?
So I'll start with where you can find us. We're on Instagram, Facebook. We kind of started our YouTube channel recently, and we're going to be doing hopefully the next month or so. We've got a couple of videos lined up that are going to be YouTube specific. We really love YouTube. We like making longer form videos, and we've been doing a lot more short form lately. So we're kind of transitioning to doing that. Just talking more, just getting more FaceTime in front of a camera. We're people. We are a family. We have dogs. We are just people that happen to make dog gear. Right. And so we want to get a little more FaceTime in front of cameras and introduce ourselves a little bit more. So that's what we've got going on coming up and where you can find us. I mean, obviously, bouldercanine.com. We're also on Etsy. If people like to order through Etsy, also there too. The one piece that I do want to mention that we didn't talk about is we recently started working with a new nonprofit called Forgotten Dogs for Forgotten Vets. I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but they're pretty much just starting. And what they do is they find service dogs that are in rescues or shelters. They have a professional dog trainer and a professional service dog trainer that goes out and kind of helps procure dogs. And they match them with an honorably discharged veteran. And they're specifically looking for lower income veterans, people that would never be able to afford a service dog if they could pay for one, or that are on a wait list for 5 years in order to get a service dog. So they actually just placed their first veteran dog pairing this past weekend. We were actually down in Roy, Washington at a coffee shop called Worthy Coffee Co. And they actually did a whole little celebration there for the first official veteran service dog match. And that is a rescue dog. It is an XL bully. His name is Honorable. Adorable dog. Just a huge, huge puddle of cuddles. And we recently started working with them, and it's been really fun to kind of be on the ground floor. We're not donating money like we do with True North GSD Rescue. We are sponsoring their program. So every person that goes through the program, they will get free gear from us. So they'll basically get a starting package of like a leash, a collar, tug, all those kinds of things. And that'll be donated to the nonprofit so that the veteran can have, veterans are pretty picky about their gear. They like really high quality stuff just across the board. So when they come into the organization and they're met with all these warm, welcoming arms, and they get some of the nicest dog gear they've ever held, it just becomes this really nice holistic experience. And it was really, it paid itself in dividends this weekend, just kind of seeing all those people grouping together and helping somebody in need. I don't know. I just kind of like it. We've been working in rescue for a really long time. And I also acknowledge that there are other dogs besides rescue dogs that need help. There are, in this case, service dogs, and they just so happen to be rescue dogs. The relationship between people and dogs is also something that I've always wanted to explore nonprofit wise. So when the opportunity presented itself, we just kind of jumped on the ship. And we've been absolutely loving those people. But no, I think that we really covered everything that I wanted to cover. I mean, we made some good headway here. That hour flew by.
Yeah. All right. So this is it, man. This is that question I warned you about. Now, I got to tell you the rules. You have to answer it, and you have to give your reason why. Do you agree to those terms? You ready?
I agree to those terms.
All right. Cake or pie, and why?
Pie.
All right.
Fast answer.
Why?
I am notorious for having a sweet tooth. I have my 10 p.m. munchies every night. Don't know why. I pretty much have ice cream or brownies or cookies or something. Just a little bit. I don't need a lot, but
just something.
We have such long days. We're up at 7 with loud barking dogs, and it doesn't really end until 10 o'clock at night. So when 10 o'clock rolls around, I just want just a little piece of something, just to make the day better. So I'm really into sweets. I have a huge sweet tooth, and I say pie because cake is a little bit challenging to do gluten-free, and to make it really nice and like perfect, I really have to bake it myself to get that kind of cake that I like. But with pie, I don't feel like I necessarily have to. We can go to a bakery, we can get a frozen pie that's gluten-free, and it's delicious and it's killer. Particularly, I am a big fan of pies with graham cracker crust. Anything with a graham cracker crust, that's it for me.
Fillings.
So yeah,
fillings.
that's my reasoning.
What's the filling? What's the one pie?
Peach pie. Peach filling. Yeah. Doesn't get any better than that. Honestly, I really like it when it's made with fresh peaches. You know, you can still get frozen peaches and it's still delicious. Yeah, peach pie. I know I'm from Washington, or I live in Washington, from New York, both huge apple states.
Right.
I should think apple, but peach is my go-to.
Peaches, I love peach pie as well. I mean, I'm probably going to say apples, probably my, the one if that's all I can have. But peach pie's right there. And the problem for me with peach pie is every now and then you get one and it's kind of runny, and I like it to be a little bit more, not dry, but just less ooze and more more peach. All right, that's all. By the way, there are no right or wrong answers. Well, actually, there is. Pumpkin. Anything pumpkin is a wrong answer as far as I'm concerned. But you didn't say pumpkin, so that's.
You can have pumpkin for 1 month of the year, and that's it.
You can't. Pumpkin should be.
Yes.
I just don't like it.
I will say we had a Friendsgiving this past weekend, and I'm going to mention my friend Alex by name and she'll hate me for it. But she made a pumpkin chiffon mousse pie. It was just really light and airy pumpkin pie. It was
if you say
knockout.
So.
And
no
she made it
gluten-free. No offense to Alex, but if you say so.
Knockout. It was a knockout pumpkin pie. I mean, one of the best I've ever had. Alex, you're wonderful, and you baked like a champion. Okay. I want more. Yeah, that's my pie decision.
Jake, thanks for sitting down with me today and putting up with Bosley at the beginning. He's given up and he's asleep over in the dining. I can see him kind of over the screen, and he's out now. He's just finally gave up, which is it's good. But thanks for sitting down with me. I wish you guys continued growth and success. I think what you're doing and how you're helping animals and people both, but the animals in need. We need more people looking after animals that can't look after themselves, if you will. Right? It breaks my heart to see animals. I used to get these almost daily social media blasts from the Wenatchee Valley Humane Society, and I had to stop. Yeah. And I had to stop because they were so good at making me feel bad. I don't mean that it broke my heart. It just broke my heart every day. It's if I could, I'd have a lot of animals, and I'd probably regret it every morning. But the point is, I really want organizations that do a good job of helping rehome animals to good homes, and people that can provide good homes find good animals. And so I like the fact that you're helping.
Yeah, this will be the last kind of note that I mentioned. We want it to be more than a business that just throws money at animals. We want it to actually be on the ground with our hands, getting them dirty, rolling up our sleeves, actually going to shelters, actually putting our hands on dogs and getting them into places physically, right? Because you can have as much trust in where you donate your money as you can, but you'll never actually know until you're actually on the ground with
Right.
how those funds are being used. And I will say that fostering is no easy task. It is the most rewarding and the most heartbreaking job that a volunteer can have. And it's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. I wouldn't change it ever. It's my favorite thing to do in the world. I love, love, love seeing dogs come into a stable and fun home like ours and watching their personalities just blow up and blossom into something amazing. It's challenging, but incredibly rewarding. And we really like our customers to know that they're investing not only in a company that gives back, but a company that's actually out there doing things. And if you're ever curious, for anyone listening, we actually have a whole donations page on our website that you can actually see exactly how we help. It's called Beyond the Donation. I took some time and went through all the crazy things that we do on a regular basis, and we just kind of itemized it. So if anyone's ever curious about how we actually do things with our rescue and other rescues out here, or some ideas on how you can get involved in your local communities, like we put a whole bunch of resources up on there to just try and showcase what we do and
Awesome.
how
That's wonderful.
other people can help.
So again, thanks for taking the time to sit down with me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.